Sunday Surefire Podcast. It's your host this week, Aaron Downtown Brown. I got the co-host Ethan Weaver with me.
Aaron, how we doing?
We're doing another week in the books, Ethan. And I don't know about you, but I think we've kind of taken the listeners through a nice journey in this off season, starting with just free agency trades. Then the summer really ramped up once the buzz started with rookie prospects. Of course, we had our draft. We threw in some mock drafts along the way too, both pre and post. And last week we talked winners and losers, and that really leaves us to always a fun subject with Sunday Surefire, and that's talking sleepers. I know, like, with really any fantasy league, you really want to know who key sleepers are each year, and obviously there's always the redraft sleepers that aren't as they're a little bit still more known guys, but in the dynasty world, sometimes we talk sleepers, and these guys are guys you might not ever hear of. Maybe you talk them once, and you might want to forget you talked about them. Is that don't you think there, Ethan?
Yeah, there's nothing better. There's not a better feeling than hitting on that like late third round pick or the player you picked up with some fab money. It's always nice to deep dive through the waiver wire and try to pick up anybody that can help your team. Honestly, if you hit on any of those players that you hit on Fab, it's a complete win. Obviously, they're dart throws, but the more darts you can throw, the better, and hopefully you hit on someone. But it's nice to do a deep dive into these players, these lesser known players, and players that have a chance to potentially do something for your dynasty team. So this is definitely going to be a fun episode. And as you said, we've been on this long fun journey so far through the dynasty off season. And before we know it, the season's going to be here. I know the schedule is getting unveiled. I think today or very soon. So it's definitely a fun time in the dynasty space.
Agreed. Definitely for sure. And I think it was this time last year we did call out Puka Nakua last year, so it definitely got to claim that one. Where I think we were joking, he comes, players like that really come like once once a decade or almost never really. But it just kind of goes to show it does pay off. Kind of listening in the off season, kind of knowing what guys you want to track, and guys that are probably won't get drafted in your rookie drafts, but just guys that you might want to spend some fab dollars on, which we'll also talk about a little bit later, and just a little bit of strategy what goes into spending fab dollars. But before we get into that, what we'll do is I may have noticed Kamish isn't hosting this week, gave him the night off, but you will hear from him actually. So he was able to record himself, so you hear his lovely voice here for a couple minutes. And what we'll do is I'll actually play that recording from commission. What we're each doing is picking two players each, just sleepers to kind of track this off season. Really wanted to track guys that will most likely not be drafted in your rookie draft. I guess it depends really what kind of league you're playing in at times and whatnot. But really want to pick a lot of these under the radar guys as we just said, and really for you all to kind of keep tabs on, and like Ethan said, hopefully we hit on them, right? Because that's when really pays off, especially if you don't even have any draft picks at this time of year. That always is fun when that happens. But what we'll do now is I'll turn it over to the commission. We'll hear his first two guys.
What is up, folks? It's the commish here. Today we are talking post rookie draft targets that you could probably get your hands on using fab dollars in Dynasty. I got two players that will definitely make for worthy stashes in your leagues this offseason. The first one is Malik Washington of the Miami Dolphins. He was selected in the sixth round, 184th overall. In college, he spent 4 seasons at Northwestern before finally finishing his college career at Virginia. He made the most of that final season in college with 110 receptions and 12 games played, which actually led the FBS in 2023. He turned those grabs into 1,426 yards and 9 touchdowns. At the combine, he ran a 4.47 40 and also had a vert of 42.5 inches. Finds himself in a dynamic landing spot here, led by an innovative offensive mind in Mike McDaniel. Coming into the season, he's firmly fourth on the depth chart in the wide receiver room behind Tyreek Hill, Jaden Waddle, and Odell Beckham Jr., who just joined the team. Beckham in particular, I want to highlight for a moment here. He's a guy who obviously a big name, but all we also know about Beckham is that the production has not met the expectation for multiple seasons now at this point. So if I'm being honest, it wouldn't shock me at all if by the end of the season, Washington or someone else on this depth chart is pushing Odell for playing time at that third wide receiver slot. As we know with Tyreek Hill, he's also on record as saying that he doesn't exactly plan on sticking around for another 5 or 6 years. When last he spoke on it, said he was willing to finish out his contract, which now just has 2 years remaining on it. So who knows? There could be future opportunities from Hill departing in the near future as well. I think you kind of put all of that together, and Malik Washington is kind of a perfect stash and seed candidate for your dynasty leagues in 2024. Number 2 for me is Erick All of the Cincinnati Bengals, tight end, selected fourth in the fourth round at 115th overall. Another 5-year college player who transferred schools. This guy played 4 years at the University of Michigan before transferring to Iowa. Didn't ever pop off the box score in college, really, but that wasn't exactly all on him. He wasn't asked to catch the ball a ton at Michigan, who favored more of a run-heavy scheme. And he also played just 6 games for Iowa in 2023 following a November torn ACL. He also underwent spinal surgery back in 2022. So injuries are very much part of Erick All's story and what you get if you do pick him up in your leagues. But that's all sort of baked into the cost here when you're acquiring him post-draft in your dynasty leagues for, like I said, free agent acquisition budget dollars only. All things being equal here, he ends up in Cincinnati at a time where their number 2 target in T. Higgins is requesting a trade, and the team just let their number 3 option, old reliable Tyler Boyd, walk out the door to go to Tennessee in free agency. So the Bengals are kind of in sort of a transition phase here as Joe Burrow enters his 5th season in the NFL. If you look at the tight end room specifically in Cincinnati over the years, they've more or less just been rummaging through veteran after veteran on 1-year contracts. Guys like Hayden Hurst and Irv Smith come to mind in recent seasons, and now it's Mike Gesicki's turn to fill that role on a 1-year deal. So I kind of look at that and just say, like, what we get here with Erick All as a tight end that has the opportunity to stick around for a 4-year contract, sort of kind of come in and develop some chemistry with Joe Burrow, even if it's not right out of the gate. And when it comes to the tight end position, when I want to evaluate that, especially in these deeper, like late third round or free agent targets, is I really just want a tight end with athleticism and the opportunity in a good offense. And while we didn't get to see All perform at the combine due to that November ACL injury, his tape is impressive enough for me when he did get opportunities to believe that there is enough athleticism there. And the Bengals are certainly a quality landing spot where I want shares of All on my fantasy teams, especially if it's only costing me fab dollars in the end.
All right, and we're back. So Ethan, tell me, what do you think about Kamish's sleepers? Do you think they're gems to look at with Malik Washington and Erick Hall? What are your thoughts on those guys?
They definitely have the profiles that would lead me to believe that there is a chance they could eventually be something. I'll start off with Malik Washington. Obviously, if you just look at his overall body of work and his profile, I think you see very good things. He lands on obviously a really good offense with the Miami Dolphins. Unfortunately for him, he was picked in the 6th round at pick 184. And you'll probably see a theme in some of my picks. I tend to target running backs with my fab dollars just because all they need is an injury or an opportunity to get in the field, and anything can happen with these running backs. And we know running backs get injured. So if they're on a 53-man roster, there's always an opportunity. Whereas a lot of these later round receivers, they never get that opportunity, and they get basically phased out of the depth chart in the next year's draft class when they draft somebody in the top 1st, 2nd, 3rd round. So it's always definitely it's not the darts I usually like to throw, but with a guy like Malik Washington, like I said, his profile is, I mean, his body of work is pretty legit. He ran a 4.47. His burst was through the roof with a 42.5-inch vert, 10 6'6" broad jump, 19 reps in the bench. So he's just a strong, explosive football player. You see that in his yards after catch, the way when he has the ball in his hands. He went from Northwestern to Virginia. And at Virginia, he kind of just blew up. He led the FBS with a school record 110 receptions, ranked fourth with school record 1,426 receiving yards. And he was ninth with 1,706 all-purpose yards. He led his team with 9 receiving touchdowns. So he had all the production you can imagine at Virginia. It's actually kind of a surprise he fell to the 6th round, but Malik Washington, definitely a nice dart. He is in a good offense. The commish touched upon the Miami Dolphins and kind of the future of that team. But yeah, Malik Washington, definitely a guy I would spend some fab on in my rookie after my rookie drafts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a great player to point out. I think just from the football perspective, as you both mentioned, just with the Dolphins, I think there's a great chance for Washington to kind of step in. And what I always say too, and in obviously, taking running backs in the waiver time is a great strategy, Ethan. But on the wide receiver position, what I always look at is like, can you claim that 4th spot, right? Can you be the 4th on the depth chart? Because what that means is, you still get reps, you still get maybe thrown in on 3rd and longs and stuff like that. And what you really want some of those players to do is just come down with some big plays and maybe get a couple touchdowns on the season. And that's really how you get noticed. And that's how they climb maybe in year 2, where they can maybe be that number 2 on the team. And I think, I think that's where you really line up some of those things, with the Dolphins depth chart with, Odell. He's obviously not a long-term solve, and as Commish mentioned with Tyreek as well, maybe just be playing out his last 2 years. So that really leaves Waddle and Malik to kind of battle for that spot. So definitely a good player to target there. And with Eric Hall, kind of talk a little bit with him. Obviously, myself being an Iowa guy and definitely a fan there of Hall, coming out of tight end U. But I think he's under the radar in many ways where, even Sam Laporta was an awesome prospect, in last year's draft, right? Where I think he's, definitely one of the top tight ends, but he wasn't the number 1 tight end coming out. And I think that was clearly because of just Iowa's offense, wasn't very prolific, right? He stood out on the team, but he didn't have the stats to really keep up, with, nationwide. And I think this is another year, of course, with just Iowa's defense really being the only thing that kept them in games. Ethan, can you guess how many passing yards Iowa had last year in the 2023 season?
I'm going to guess under 2,000.
Yes, you are spot on. 1,600 yards passing. So
prolific offense right there.
Yes, prolific right there. So 3,000 total yards. So it's not like they were really getting many. They actually had equal rushing as passing. So that, you usually have like, it's usually like a 3-to-1 ratio or something like that. But no, not with Iowa. So they only had like 3,000 yards of offense. So I think it's another example where, Eric Hall is a under the radar guy, very athletic, very unfortunately toward that ACL, but he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on, especially for the Bengals in that offense where Gesicki's really the guy he's really got to beat out, where Gesicki's kind of proven, at one point we thought he could be the guy in Miami, and he, hasn't really stuck, right? But yeah, I think just another really great call out there with Hall post draft of, definitely a tight end to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, definitely a tight end to keep an eye on. Obviously, any Iowa tight end you got to keep tabs on. But yeah, not much more to add on Eric All. As you said, it is unfortunate that he tore his ACL and he missed the last 7 games this past year. So there's no athletic testing. But I mean, at 6'4", 252 coming out of Iowa, drafted in the 4th round by the Bengals. I'm sure he would have went higher if he didn't tear his ACL. I'm sure teams had a tough time kind of pegging him into their evaluation in terms of where they should actually draft him in the NFL draft. But he was actually at Michigan his first 4 years and spent his last year at Iowa. So always a good call for a tight end to go to Iowa. You get that pedigree, but it will be interesting to see that tight end depth chart evolve throughout the year. Obviously, Mike Gesicki, I just watched him for the Patriots over the past 2 seasons, and it wasn't great. So definitely a wide open tight end room. So Eric All definitely a nice dart with some fab dollars.
Agreed, agreed. So Ethan, let's move on to you. Who are you gonna bring up first? Who's your first guy here?
So, as I said, I'm going to stick to my theme. I'm going to hammer the running backs here, and we're going to talk about Kamani Vidal, running back out of Troy. He was drafted in round 6, pick five in the 6th round, overall pick 181 to the Chargers. And as we touched on in some previous episodes, the Chargers were one of those spots that we were dying for a running back to land in. Unfortunately, it we had to wait till the 6th round, but fortunately, for Kamani Vidal, he's going to have some opportunity here. He has a very good profile. He's 5'8", 213 pounds, so he has a 32.4 BMI, which is the 91st percentile. So definitely thick enough to carry a workload. And his athletic measurables were very good as well. He ran a 4.46, which was the 87th percentile, at a 37.5-inch vert, 10 foot broad jump, 7.013 cone, and a 4.15 20-yard shuttle, bench 18 reps. So, according to Player Profiler, with his burst score, that's a 77th percentile. Agility score was a 79th percentile. So, definitely a good athlete and somebody who has the requisite size and athleticism to be a solid NFL contributor and NFL running back. He fits the bill with that, and he just was very productive at Troy. In 2023, he averaged 5.59 yards a carry. He had 297 attempts. He had 1,661 yards, 15 total touchdowns, and he had 18 receptions for 201 yards. But this is a guy that's shown he could handle a big workload. He dominated at Troy, and he also showed a knack to catch the football. Going from 2020 all the way to 2023, he's had 20 plus receptions in every single year. So he clearly can catch the football. He can do it all. He can be a workhorse in the NFL, even though obviously the NFL is kind of getting away from that. But obviously he has the tools to make that happen. So he's definitely a guy that I love spending some fab money on, just because he has the profile. He has a great landing spot. And he's one of these small school running backs that often get overlooked. So these are guys that are under the radar because they didn't play at Alabama. They didn't play at Clemson. But you look at the Chargers depth chart, it's Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Isaiah Spiller, and Kamani Vidal. And J.K. Dobbins, who knows what's left of him considering his injury history. Gus Edwards is getting up there, and Isaiah Spiller can't seem to get on the field. So I think Vidal has a great opportunity going to the Chargers, and I'm definitely excited for him, and definitely excited to get on my team. And just to kind of cap it off, Pro Football Focus loved him too. They gave him a grade of 92.4, which ranked 7th out of 440 running backs on PFF.com that were graded. So PFF liked him. He has a good profile and has an awesome landing spot. So it's I think it's wheels up for Kamani Vidal, and as I said, I would definitely use a decent amount of fab dollars to get him on my roster.
Yeah, I like this prospect here, and I think for some of you that know, we have a Discord too, Sunday Surefire Discord, and we have a college expert that from time to time I'll chat up with and say, hey, even prior to tonight's episode, I was like, hey, who do you got? Who are you thinking on sleepers too? And just sometimes I like to gut check him, and he's like, hey, is anybody talking Kamani Vidal? And I was like, hey, as a matter of fact, that's going to be Ethan's guy. So definitely nice to see some reassurance there. And I know he has actually recently been climbing up, getting a little bit more notice, especially after landing with the Chargers, as we said in the offseason, is a decent landing spot. I think any running back right now, if you're the top three on the depth chart in a Greg Roman offense is looking good, right? So um I think just from the football perspective alone there, and as you said, with maybe the unknown with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, climbing up there in age, he's obviously not going to be there for too many more years as well. So I think that's a great call out. That's where we want Corum to go too. So I think I definitely think he's got a great shot of seeing some nice playing time this year and maybe carving out a larger role in the future. But moving on to my first guy. So kind of a well-known name, but a guy that got drafted very late and dropped in a lot of draft stock, right? So this is Brendan Rice. Also signing with the Chargers as well, right? So Brendan Rice, of course, son of Jerry Rice. Kind of an interesting pot. I guess just landing spot where I think we talked about just the Chargers wide receiver core with we got Quentin Johnson from last year. I know he's got some QJ truthers out there still, but with him and DJ Chark, we got another rookie with Lad McConkey, Josh Palmer, and then Brandon Rice, right? So there's your five right there. And as I said, if what I always do is can they carve out at least top four on the depth chart, right? That means you're going to get some snaps. And what I would like to see from Rice is just that, where can he land on maybe beating out potentially QJ, right? Where I know he was a top higher capital guy last year, but really didn't do a whole lot in production with as many snaps as he was out there last year, right? But really, with Brendan Rice, he had 800 yards receiving last year and 12 touchdowns, with Caleb Williams. And I think one thing that sticks out on tape is, you see a lot of highlights over a lot of touchdowns and stuff that Brendan Rice had with USC, and a lot of those highlights is just Caleb Williams just running around buying time for 5-6 seconds, right? Where it's like, all right, is it Caleb Williams or is it receivers, not getting open quick enough? But the more I watched, Brendan Rice oftentimes really beat his guy a lot, and he has good speed. He's able to catch the deep ball. He's able to find the end zone as well. I mean, there's a lot of funny highlights where he just beats his guy instantly. Williams misses him, and then like 5 seconds later, Rice runs across the field and catches a touchdown on the other side of the end zone. So, a couple goofy plays. I don't think you really see too much in the NFL, but I think really when you pay attention, I think his route running is pretty solid. He's got good size, 6'2", 212. So, once again in that offense, I know the Greg Roman offense is not too thrilling of a spot, but like I said, carve out that fourth spot at a minimum. Can you catch down at least 4 touchdowns on the year would be awesome. Just be that touchdown guy. And I think that would be enough for him to carve out more time in years to come.
Yeah, Brendan Rice obviously had great bloodlines with being the son of Jerry Rice, but Lance Zierlein had him projected in the 4th round, and unfortunately, he fell all the way to the 7th. So, not sure really what happened there, but like you said, he does have the requisite, size, athleticism, and he was a touchdown scorer. He scored a touchdown every 5.2 catches during his collegiate career. So, we'll see if that can translate into the NFL. Obviously, he goes to a depth chart, as you alluded to, that is pretty wide open. That depth chart is begging for a receiver to take on the number 1 role, the number 2 role, and the number 3 role. I mean, they brought in
Right.
they brought in a lot of guys. Obviously, like you said, with Chark, they drafted Lad McConkey. They have QJ. Hopefully, QJ can turn it around. But it's a wide open depth chart. Justin Herbert at the helm, so a really good spot for Brendan Rice, but the 7th round draft capital is not ideal. Obviously, the historic hit rates on a receiver that's drafted in the 7th round isn't ideal, but hey, you never know. So definitely a guy you can spend a few fab dollars on, put him on your taxi squad and see what happens.
Agreed. You're not really at a total loss if they don't hit, as we say. But Ethan, let's move on to your second guy.
Yes.
Let me guess, running back?
Yeah, I am
Tight end.
I'm sticking with the running back. I'm sticking with my position group here that I like to target at the end of rookie drafts, and I'm gonna call out Dylan Lobby UNH. What does that stand for, Aaron?
Already lost it. Oh,
Oh, come on.
no, wait. New Hampshire, University of New
Yes,
Hampshire. I get
yes.
it. There we
Yeah,
go.
University of New Hampshire. So Dylan Lobby was drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders in the 6th round at pick 208. And this is a guy that has a decent profile, a huge receiving threat out of the backfield. He's 5'10", 206 pounds, only a 29.6 BMI, 42nd percentile. But I think the way he's going to be used in the NFL is going to be more in the receiving game. So I'm not really too worried about his BMI, but his athletic testing was pretty good. If 4.54, 40, 37-inch vertical, 9'10" broad, 6.84 three cone, 402 20-yard shuttle, and 23 reps on the bench. So definitely an agile, strong back. His agility score, according to Player Profiler, was in the 97th percentile. So this guy can obviously get in and out of breaks quickly, which obviously helped him catch a lot of balls at the University of New Hampshire. In 2023, he was an FCS All-American. He had 749 rushing yards on 160 carries, 4.7 yards a carry, 9 rushing touchdowns. But he had 68 receptions for 699 yards. That's 10.3 per reception. And he had 7 receiving touchdowns in 10 games. So he set the school record with 295 receiving yards against Central Michigan. And I want to bring up the Central Michigan game because that was his only opportunity where he played up in class to an FBS school, and he absolutely put up video game numbers. He, as I said, he caught 12 passes for 295 yards and scored 3 touchdowns. So in his one opportunity to play an FBS school, he absolutely balled out. And he's definitely a guy that fits this new age NFL pass catching back. And he can do a lot out of the backfield. So he's definitely a guy that I'm looking to add after my rookie drafts, especially when you look at the Raiders depth chart. You have Zamir White, but Zamir White, he is not a pass catcher. I mean, if you look at his NFL days and going back to his college days, he does not catch a lot of passes. You have Alexander Madison, Amir Abdullah, and then you have Lobby. Amir Abdullah is going to be the one back that he needs to kind of beat out to get that pass catching role. But again, I keep going back to these smaller school running backs. I mean, if Dylan Lobby was putting up those kind of numbers in a Power 5 conference, he would be talked about a ton. Granted, obviously there's a big difference in competition, so he may not put up those numbers. But either way, he played against the people he played against, and he dominated, and that's all you can really do. So he's definitely a guy that fits that third down receiving back, and there is a wide open depth chart for that role in Las Vegas. So definitely a guy I'm looking to add after my rookie drafts.
Yeah, I don't mind that call out. I mean, other than the fact he's a Raider, right? But I think with Lobby, if he can carve out that third down role, and especially if the Raiders are not doing too well, which I hope pans out, that usually a struggling team. You'll see. I really hate obviously being a Chiefs fan. Don't really like speaking highly of Raiders, but yeah, like I like to spin it in a good bad way. So usually struggling teams, third down running backs usually do get a lot of work. And if you look at quarterbacks, with them, they not really capitalizing on a high profile quarterback, with either O'Connell or Minshew starting off the year. I do foresee them checking down to that position. So I think that's a good call out if he can carve that out, and him and White might be that 1-2 punch where I definitely think that's a great call out where that's the that's the NFL these days anyway. And if you can grab one of those players that splits time at that position, post draft, I think that's definitely a great call out there. Moving on to my last guy though. So I actually I moved on to running back, so kind of took your strategy there, Ethan. And one guy I thought this was more of just a fun guy to talk about, and that's going to be Tyrone Tracy, running back drafted from Purdue. Ended up with the one of the draft spots that we talked about was interesting with the Giants, right? So wanted to call Tracy out. He was a position that was a wide receiver that converted a running back. I know with fantasy managers, kind of our eyes perk up there because you obviously do want that dual threat, right? Player that can run the ball and catch, right? So I think with Tracy, obviously is a little more shaky on the ground, right? Having more time at the wide receiver position, but didn't really put up bad numbers at Purdue. Ran over 700 yards, eight touchdowns, and had 6 yards per carry. So, with the decent amount of rushing attempts as well. So, I think he's definitely a guy to keep your eye on. Obviously, I think in years past, it's like those gadget players. I've always like wanted to stay away from, like your Laviska Chenaults and stuff like that. But that's the other way around, right? That's the running backs that kind of more the gadget, more on the wide receiver lens, right? But I think the other way around, them going converting to running back is always interesting. And the competition is, there's not a whole lot for competition. You got Devin Singletary probably leading the way there in New York. Eric Gray was their rookie last year. He had his opportunities, right, when Barkley went down and whatnot, and Gray really didn't impress too much. So once again, another guy that could carve out that third down role and make some nice plays. Hopefully carve out a larger role in the future. Just definitely interesting to watch those type of players, and obviously that dual threat is always what we do look for in the fantasy community. So Tyrone Tracy is who I'm calling out for my last guy here. Ethan, what do you think?
Yeah, a little Antonio Gibson light here, a little running
That's right. That's
receiver turn
right.
running back. No, I like Tyrone Tracy a lot. I think he's definitely a dart I want to be throwing. He PFF liked him. He had a grade of 87.5, which ranked 36, which is very impressive for a guy that only played one full year running back. This guy, I mean, we just talked about Dylan Lobby fitting the new age mold of running backs, and Tyrone Tracy fits that mold too. A guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, obviously being an X receiver, and he has enough speed with a 4.48, but he has a ton of burst, 40-inch vert, 10'4" broad, 6'8" 1/3 cone, which is very quick, and then a 406 shuttle. So his change of direction, obviously there, 93rd percentile burst, 96th percentile agility score. This guy has the athleticism. He has decent size with 5'11", 209. But definitely a guy that is intriguing as a big part because of what you said in terms of the depth chart. Devin Singletary is really the only guy there that is deserving of a lot of carries. So I think Tyrone Tracy has every opportunity to work his way to a legitimate role as early as this year. So Tyrone Tracy, definitely intrigued, and definitely a good call out by you.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. With that depth chart, as we keep harping on, where I think he'll have his opportunities, right? So I guess what I'll do is I'll kick it over to you. Do you have any other guys any honorable mentions or anything you wanna call out before we move on to the last part of the show here?
Yeah, just one quick honorable mention. I'm gonna stick to my guns here at the running back position, and I'm gonna call out Rasheen Ali, who was a round 5 pick, 165 by the Baltimore Ravens. He's a running back out of Marshall, 5'11", 206. And I just want to touch upon his production real quick. In 2021, he had 46 catches for 342 yards, 7.4 per catch, and he had 1,401 rushing yards in that season, 5.6 yards a carry. He had 23 rushing touchdowns, one receiving and one kick return touchdown. So he led the FBS with the 25 total touchdowns, and that was in 2021. And then he took a leave of absence in 2022. Not sure why. He returned to play the final 3 games as a reserve, and then in 2023, he was second team All Sun Belt Conference. He led his team with 1,135 rushing yards. But unfortunately, he ruptured his bicep tendon at the 2024 Senior Bowl. So we're not able to get athletic testing. But I mean, just a guy that put up those kind of numbers in 2021 and put up some pretty good numbers as well in 2023. I think he's a guy just based on the landing spot in round 5 to the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens like to use multiple running backs. I know Derrick Henry is there now, but you have Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell, who's coming off obviously that pretty bad knee injury. So I think the depth chart's wide open, and that's the reason why I'm looking to add him with my fab dollars, because like I said, hey, if you're a running back on a 53-man roster and somebody goes down, I mean, most of the time it's not if, it's when someone goes down, you're going to have a shot. So I just wanted to call out Rasheen Ali real quick.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. And to your point, I mean, you got a 30-year-old running back leading the way, and I don't know, Derrick Henry's like built extreme, way different from most running backs in the league, but yeah, as you said, with that position going down, so many injuries, I think, and actually even Henry's backup, I know with Mitchell rehabbing his knee injury, right? So he could even be number 2 to start the season as well. So that's also a good call out there, Ethan. But what we'll do now is, we talked a lot about these fab guys, and you may be, maybe your draft is approaching, or maybe it just did, or I know ours is, we obviously, if you have a slow draft, some drafts go longer and shorter, but we're still in the first round, and it seems like each pick is taking almost that full day. I'm not sure who's fault, who's to blame there, Mr. Ethan. But
Hey, don't look at me.
no, but yeah, some of you listeners out there, yeah, you might be in this position, or to follow these guys. But I think in the spirit of just talking fab, this has been a fun episode to talk. In the past, for obviously the excitement over the guys, but now as fantasy owners too, I think the age old question, and I know we spent a long time talking about it. The first season we talked about fab is I guess I'll put you on the spotlight, Ethan, is how do you look at fab dollars right after the draft, right? Where you got, draft is over, you got your whole budget you're looking at with fab dollars, and you got all these undrafted rookies to pick from. Kind of what's your strategy there as far as how you spend or how you look at these players? And I guess, you kind of answer it however you'd like.
So a lot of people in the industry are always like, hey, like, what's the player after your rookie draft concludes? Or maybe if you have the 312, they're like, hey, who would you spend 25% of your fab on? And that's probably the player that you should draft at like the 312. But in my experience, if there's a guy, there's always a few players out there that everybody kind of wants after the rookie draft ends. And if you have let's say you have $1,000 budget, if you put a $250 bid on that player in my leagues, you're not going to have a chance to get that player. I mean, I've seen some absolutely insane bids right off the rip. And what I like to do, I like to kind of go for it. I feel like this is the best time to spend your fab. You can get players like we discussed throughout this episode that we've been doing research on for months, that we've looked into, that we have some conviction on, and you can take that dart throw. And I don't mind blowing most of my fab right after the rookie draft to get another 2 or 3 rookies on my team with profiles that I like, because in my experience throughout the season, I mean, sometimes yes, does a player pop off that's on waivers? And you're like, damn, I wish I had some extra money to spend, but that's kind of far and few between in the leagues I play in. I know there's some dynasty leagues with like only if you 20-man rosters. And in that case, obviously, the waiver wire is gonna be much more active. So you kind of got to tailor it to your league. But in a lot of my leagues, it's 25-man rosters and 3 taxi spots. So the waiver wire is pretty depleted by the end of rookie season. So I kind of like to go for it. If I have a lot of conviction for a guy, like I like Sean Tucker a lot last year. Granted, it obviously didn't work out, but I spent 40% of my fab on him because that's a guy I targeted and that's a guy I really wanted. And I spent like $7 of my $1,000 budget. So I'm not afraid to go after a player I like. I just paid I think 407 out of my 1,000 for Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen's a guy I liked. He's a guy 2 months ago I would have said you were crazy if he wasn't drafted in the top 3 rounds of your rookie draft. And so I was like, you know what? I know it's not a great landing spot, but I want him on my team. And I'm kind of talking more so rookie drafts that are only 3 rounds. I know a lot of people do have 4 round, even 5 round rookie drafts. So that's obviously a much different story. In all of mine, we have 3 rounds. So there's a decent amount of good prospects that were available. I mean, Bucky Irvin was available, Braylon Allen, as I mentioned, all the guys that we talked about today were available. So it's kind of league dependent, but I like to send it when it comes to fab right after the rookie draft.
Yeah, it's funny. This is one I kind of let Kamish change my mind on, right? I think in the past and actually, like growing up more the redraft focus, you kind of wanted to maybe reserve some of your money, right? And make those mid-season pickups. But really with Dynasty, I mean, you look at some of those guys, as you said, really that pool are the guy most likely if there are going to be any breakouts, it's going to be right then and there, right? You look at obviously Puka from last year, many of those drafts he went undrafted where I have changed my mind there, and I do like going for it as well now. Picking out a couple guys now. However, I do like, thinking of a good 4 or 5 guys, I think it does depend on what is the general, if you're kind of up to speed on who are some of these guys that maybe the rest of the league are gonna throw money at. Um, as you said, I think there might be a lot of competition with some, but yeah, I think if you get 3, 4, 5 players deep in it, you obviously don't have to go all in on those guys. And if you got like a third string tight end or somebody you might want to keep an eye on, just throwing a few dollars of those guys in, sure you get them. I always do think it is funny when you go all in on a guy and nobody else bids on him, though. Those are always fun. But at least you get your guy.
Exactly. You went for it, you got your guy. But yeah, that's always tough. It kind of happened to me with my Braylon Allen pick. I was shocked. Only me and one other manager bid on him, which I was, like I said, I was very surprised. I was at like 400 something. I think they were at like 200 something. So I spent a little more than I had to, but I got the guy I wanted, and I was happy with it. I also got my guy Kamani Vidal, so we're good. We're good.
There you go. Your season, your target there, and I guess just to hit on that. I mean, a few strategies we called out in this episode. I know Ethan, you're big on getting these running backs, right? Where they can be that next man up. Where third string can end up being first string. Midway through the season too. So that's definitely a good strategy. For me, I just want my wide receivers. If I do try to bid on them, can they carve out that fourth row? Because those are obviously your Gabe Davises that just come down with touchdowns, right? Can they get
Yeah,
a
you had to
three,
bring up
four?
Gabe Davis. You had to bring him up.
Gotta do it. Gotta do it. I mean, you look at that, a fourth, but I do like bring that up just where, fourth on the depth chart, but he had, 6 touchdowns, and that's how you get noticed, and that's really what you try to shoot for. Can they just come down with just a few touchdowns on the year? and then maybe they climb their way up in year 2, year 3, as mentioned. But I guess that's with that. Ethan, anything else on these rookies before we call it a day today?
I have a question I want to pose to you. I've been hearing this on some podcasts that I listen to in the dynasty space here, and I thought it was a cool question. So I'll ask you: of all the rookies in this NFL draft class 2024, if there was one rookie that you could know their final stats at the end of their rookie year, who would that player be?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think I like this answer here. So I'm going to choose Lad McConkey here, where I think, just for a multitude of reasons, where if I can see that crystal ball, and I know there's a lot of, I think what that's going to do is reveal a lot of things about just the Chargers, right? So not only will I know, hey, is McConkey going to be, does he get his targets? Is he just more of a reception guy, just more of a PPR guy, or actually does he come down with touchdowns? I think obviously we want to know, will he turn into that number one over there with the Chargers? But I think what it'll also do is just kind of unveil, hey, what's going on with Herbert, right? Where if McConkey has a good season, maybe you look at his yards per catch or things like that, where is some of that going to turn into what we're scared of, where that Greg Roman um, offense, right? Where is it just mostly Russian? Where are some of these passing numbers dropping? So I think McConkey, and I think for the other fact that he's an interesting guy because you got a lot of decisions to make in the late first round of your rookie drafts, where he obviously can be picked around that range, and maybe that 8 through 12 range or something like that. Some people might even jump on him a little sooner. It depends, right? So I think McConkey is very interesting because I just want to see these jump out the gates as just being involved in that offense from day one and week one, where that's who I'd pick, I think.
I like that answer a lot, and my answer has some similar reasoning. But to kind of touch on your point a little further in terms of like, hey, if we know Lad's final rookie numbers, it kind of gives us a sneak peek into kind of, hey, what did potentially Herbert do? But it also tells us if Lad's numbers are down, it tells you he wasn't the number one receiver in that offense. So it kind of leads you to be like, hey, who actually took that step? Was it QJ? Was it Chark? Was it Joshua Palmer? So it's that is
Oh my God, Brendan Rice.
yeah, oh yeah, exactly. It could be Brendan Rice. So I think that is pretty cool. But also to your point with that, like that section of the rookie draft from like 10, like basically 9 to the 112 is a tier of players that can go in any kind of jumbled order. So that's why I liked your Lad McConkey call, because my answer is Xavier Worthy, just for the simple fact too, because I was kind of splitting hairs between Lad McConkey, Xavier Worthy. So I like both those players. I mean, we all know I like Lad McConkey, so it would be very nice to know what Xavier Worthy's numbers are, because obviously he has a lot of hype going to the Chiefs. They trade up to pick 28 to get him. Everybody is telling me, and everything you see is that, hey, I think this guy is more than just a speed guy. I think he's a legit route runner. He can create separation. He can be a problem. Andy Reid's gonna scheme him up. He's with Patrick Mahomes. Can he be a Tyreek Hill light? And if you were able to kind of pull back the curtain and see his numbers, and if he has over 1,000 yards as rookie, I mean, if you get him at the 109, 110, 111, 112, his I mean, over 1,000 yards as rookie with Mahomes. I mean, he's a two first plus kind of guy. I mean, that's a guy you'd want to obviously smash at any one of those picks. So that's why I would like to see his stats, just because I think he does have the most upside, and it would help make a decision in that part of the rookie draft.
Ethan. This is the football god. Xavier Worthy will have 1,800 reception yards. yards.
Honestly, that took me kind of surprised. I was a little scared when I started hearing that voice.
Whoa, yeah. What was that?
What was
We
that?
had the football god there, right?
Wow. I may have to take
we
him out
heard
to
it.
101. 101, that's Xavier Worthy.
1,800 yards. All right. I am sold with Worthy as a Chiefs fan. I like the sound of that.
Wow, the fantasy gods just spoke to us. Hey, you
I
heard it
like
here.
that.
You heard it here first. Xavier Worthy, 1,800 plus yards.
There you go. He's now a top 5 pick. There. Well, I guess with that being said, everyone, there's your nugget for to end the show on. I guess with that being said, peace.